The ad said $200 a night, 7 nights, and all I had to do was sleep. I want you to remember that later, when you get to the part where you stop believing me. It really was that simple, and I really did need the money, and for the first few nights it really was the easiest paycheck I ever earned. That's how it gets you. It doesn't come for you in a dark alley. It waits in a clean beige room with your name on the door and a fresh pillow, and it lets you walk in on your own 2 feet every single night, because you keep choosing to. I was 23 and I was drowning, not in a lake, not in anything dramatic, just in the ordinary way, the way half the people listening to this are drowning right now. Behind on rent, a credit card I was paying with another credit card, student loans for a degree I never finished. I'd been turned down for the kind of jobs you don't even tell your friends you applied for. So when I saw the flyer in the laundromat, sleep study, healthy adults 18 to 35, $200 a night, paid in cash each morning, I pulled one of the little tabs off the bottom before I'd even finished reading it. The number connected to a man named Marsh. He had a flat, tired voice, the voice of someone reading from a card he'd read 1,000 times. He asked if I smoked, if I took medication, if I had a heart condition, if anyone in my family had what he called a history of sleep disturbance. I said no to all of it. He didn't ask my name until the very end, almost like an afterthought. And when I gave it, he repeated it back slowly, the way you'd write something down. Then he told me where to come, and what time, and one last thing. He said, don't eat anything after 6, and come tired. Come as tired as you can. I remember thinking that was a strange thing to ask. Most studies want you rested, controlled, clean. This one wanted me worn down. I told myself it made sense. They wanted me to sleep after all, and a tired man sleeps. I told myself a lot of things in those 2 weeks. That's the other thing I want you to understand. Every door I walked through, I had a good reason. The reasons were always there, waiting, like they'd been left out for me. The clinic was a low brick building off a service road behind an industrial park, the kind of place that could have been a dialysis center, or a tax office, or nothing at all. There was no sign, just a number on the door and a buzzer. And when I pressed it, the lock clicked, and I let myself into a waiting room, with carpet the color of oatmeal, and 3 rows of plastic chairs, and a water cooler that wasn't plugged in. Behind a sheet of glass sat Marsh. I knew it was him before he spoke, because he had the exact face you'd imagine attached to that voice. Gray, soft, patient, a man who had been sitting behind that glass so long, he'd started to take on the color of the walls. He slid a clipboard through the gap, forms, pages of them. A waiver that said the clinic wasn't responsible for emotional distress, parasomnia events, or persistent effects. I read that line twice. Persistent effects. I asked him what that meant. He looked at me for a moment, and then he said in that flat voice, some people find the dreams stay with them a while. It passes. And I signed. Of course I signed. $200 was sitting on the other side of my signature, and I was so tired of being afraid of my mailbox. While I sat filling out the forms, a side door opened, and another subject came out. A young guy, maybe a little older than me, and he stopped at the glass to collect his cash from Marsh. I only saw him for a few seconds, but I've thought about him a lot since. He had the look of someone coming off a long-haul flight, that gray jet-lagged slackness, except worse, except wrong, and when he turned to go, his eyes passed over me without any interest at all, the way you'd look at a chair. There was a tremor in his hand as he folded the bills into his pocket. I remember deciding he must have partied the night before or be coming down off something, and I remember being a little smug about it, the easy smugness you feel about other people's weakness when you don't yet know you're looking straight at your own future. He didn't say anything. Nobody in that place ever said anything they didn't have to. The door buzzed and he walked out into the daylight, and I bent back over my forms, and I didn't think about him again for days. I think about him every night now. I wonder which chair he's sitting in. The room they gave me was at the end of a corridor. Beige walls, a single bed with white sheets pulled tight, a nightstand, no window. Up in one corner, where the wall met the ceiling, there was a small black camera with a little red light, angled down at the bed. A bundle of wires ran from a panel by the headboard. Marsh came in and glued cold electrodes to my scalp and my temples and one on my chest, over my heart. and he clipped something to my finger, and he talked the whole time in that low, even way, telling me what each wire did. This one reads your brain waves, this one your heart, this one your breathing. We just want to see you sleep, he said. That's the whole job. Just sleep. Then he turned off the light, and the door clicked, and the only thing left in the dark was that small red eye in the corner, watching. I didn't sleep well that first night. You wouldn't either, with wires glued to your head and a camera staring at you. I lay there feeling ridiculous, feeling the cold spots where the gel held the electrodes, listening to the building tick and settle. At some point I went under. I don't remember dreaming. I remember Marsh's hand on my shoulder in the gray early light, and him peeling the wires off one by one, and then 2 crisp $100 bills laid on the nightstand like a tip. Easy money, I thought, folding them into my pocket. That was night 1. I want to be honest with you. If it had stayed like that, I would have done 100 nights. I'd have moved in. Night 2 is where it started, though. I didn't understand it as a start. I understood it that way only later, looking back, the way you can only ever see the first stair of a staircase once you're already at the bottom of it. I fell asleep easier the second night. Familiarity, I guess. And then I woke up, and I could not move. If you've never had it, I don't know how to make you feel it. Sleep paralysis. Your mind switches on, but your body is still locked down. Still in the off state your brain puts it in, so you don't act out your dreams. You are awake. Your eyes are open, and you are a passenger in a body that will not answer you. I'd had it once or twice as a teenager, just for a few seconds, enough to know the word for it. So when it happened that second night, I knew, distantly, what it was. I told myself, this is a known thing. This is just your body. Wait it out. It passes in a minute. But that knowledge didn't touch the other thing, the animal thing, which was the absolute certainty that I was not alone in that room. It is the oldest feeling there is. Something is here. Not a thought, a fact, delivered straight into the back of your skull, under all your reasoning. Something is in the room with you, and it is aware of you. I lay there locked in my own body, eyes open, and I could see the corner of the ceiling, the corner where the camera was, and the little red light was off. It had been on every other time I'd looked at it. It was on when Marsh left. But now, in the middle of the night, with that feeling crawling all over me, the red light was off, like the camera had been switched away, like for these few minutes nobody was watching the room, or nobody was supposed to see what was in it. The paralysis broke. It let go all at once, the way it does, and I sat up gasping with my heart slamming against the electrode taped over it. And the red light in the corner was on again, steady, watching. I told myself I'd imagined the light being off. You can talk yourself out of almost anything at 4 a.m. if the alternative is unbearable. In the morning, Marsh was different, only slightly. He peeled the wires off like always, but he was quicker, and there was something almost eager under the flatness, like a man trying not to show he's pleased. He said, "You had a good event last night." I asked him what an event was. He just said, "It's a clinical term." And he laid down the money, and he watched me take it, and I had the strangest feeling walking out into the cold morning that I had given them something worth more than $200, and that they knew it, and I didn't. I almost didn't go back for night 3. I want that on the record, too. I sat in my apartment that whole day with the $400 on the table and a bad feeling in my stomach, and I almost didn't go. But the electric company had sent me the kind of letter that comes in a red envelope, and $400 is not $600, and the math of my life pulled me back out the door and into my car and down that service road to the building with no sign. The reasons were waiting for me, like always. I picked them up, and I carried them in. Night 3, the paralysis came again, and this time I didn't fight to wake up. This time, locked in place, I made myself look at the corner, not the camera corner, the other one, the far corner of the room, above the foot of the bed, where the 2 walls and the ceiling all came together into a knot of shadow. The shadow was too deep. I want to be precise, because precision is the only thing I have to offer you. It was not a shape. It was not a figure with arms and a face that I could point to and say, "There, a monster." It was that the dark in that corner was too much dark, like the corner went back further than the room should allow, like something was filling it the way water fills a glass, all the way up into the angle where the walls met, and it was not empty. You can feel the difference between an empty dark and a full one. We all can. It's older than language. That corner was full, and it was full of attention, and the attention was pointed at me. I lay there and I stared at it, and it did not move and I did not move, and the standoff went on, and I started in my paralyzed silence to bargain, to pray almost, though I've never been a praying man. Don't, I thought, whatever you are, don't. Just let me wake up. And eventually I did. The lock on my body broke and I scrambled back against the headboard and slapped the light on. And the corner was just a corner, beige and ordinary, a faint cobweb up in the angle, nothing else. But my sheet was damp, a patch over my chest, cold and clammy the size of a spread hand, like something had been resting its weight there. And I was tired, not sleepy tired the way you're tired after you give blood, that hollow light-headed scoop taken out of the middle of you. I'd slept, the clock said I'd slept 6 hours, and I felt like I'd run all night. I should have run then. I know that. You know that. You're sitting there thinking, why didn't he just stop? And all I can tell you is that when you are inside it, when the thing comes a half step closer each night, the step is always small enough to talk yourself past. It never doubles. It never lunges. It just takes one more quiet inch of ground. And 1 inch is never enough to make a man who needs $200 turn down $200. That's the genius of it. That's the patience of it. It is so much more patient than we are. Night 4. I need you to stay with me for night 4, because this is the one I still can't close my eyes without seeing. The paralysis came at the same time it always came. I learned later, from the data sheets Marsh left out once, that it was always 3:14. Every night, 3:14 in the morning. The clock would tick over, and my body would die for a while, and my mind would stay. That night I woke into the lockdown, and the red light was off, and the corner at the foot of the bed was full. And this time, the dark moved. Not fast. That's the part that breaks people, I think, when I tell them. They imagine something rushing, and rushing you could almost bear because it would be over. This was slow. It poured itself down out of the corner head first, the way a drop of black oil slides down a pane of glass. Unhurried, certain. And as it came down the wall it unfolded, and there was too much of it. Far too much. A long thin length of person-shaped dark that had been folded up small to fit in that corner, and was now letting itself out to its full size. Its head reached the floor while the rest of it was still coming down the wall. It was taller than the room. It had to bend. I could not move. I could not scream. I want to tell you I was brave, but there is no brave inside sleep paralysis. There is only the scream that stays in your chest with nowhere to go, hammering, while your face stays slack and calm and your open eyes leak at the corners. I lay there, and I watched it cross the floor, and I watched it reach the bed, and I felt the mattress take its weight, a long, slow press, the springs going down in a line beside me. As it lay down behind me, along my back. It fit itself to me, the whole long, cold length of it, knees behind my knees, chest against my spine, and it laid an arm over my side, heavy as a wet rope, and it put what I can only call its face into the back of my neck. And then it breathed. It breathed in time with me. In when I breathed in, out when I breathed out. For a few breaths it just matched me, learning my rhythm, the way you'd fall into step beside someone walking. And then it changed the timing, just slightly, so that when I breathed out, it breathed in, and I felt it take the breath out of me. I felt the air leave my chest and not go into the room, but into it, pulled out of me and swallowed, and it did not give it back. It took the next one the same way, and the next. Each breath I let go, it drank, and with every one I felt that hollow blood give out feeling deepen, felt something thin and essential being siphoned off the top of me, quietly, patiently, while I lay there awake and aware and absolutely unable to so much as twitch a finger. And here's the thing I have never said out loud, the thing that shames me more than going back ever did. Somewhere in the middle of it, some small exhausted part of me stopped fighting. It is so tiring to scream with no sound. It is so tiring to be afraid at that pitch for that long, night after night. And the cold weight against my back was, in its horrible way, total. It asked nothing of me except that I keep breathing, and it would do all the rest. And there was a moment, lying there being drunk from, when a voice in me that was still my own voice and not its thought, a tired and ruined part of me thought, just let it. Just stop. Let it have what it wants, and maybe then you can finally rest. That is what it does to you, in the end, I think. That is the real trick of it. It doesn't break the door down. It makes you tired enough to open it yourself. It makes lying still feel like mercy. And, on the wall, I could see it from where I was frozen. There was a faint glow. The little monitor in the observation booth, its light spilling out under the booth door and onto the corridor wall opposite my open door. And lit by that glow, in the booth, I could see the side of Marsh's gray face. He was watching the screen. He was watching the night vision feed of my room. He was watching this happen to me in real time. The numbers from the wire over my heart scrolling up his monitor. And he was not moving. He was not coming. He was just watching. The way you'd watch a pot to see when it boils. When it finished, and I don't know how long it took, time doesn't work right in there. It rose off the bed the same way it had come, slow, folding, and it poured itself back up the wall into the corner, smaller and smaller, until the corner was just a corner full of too much dark, and then the paralysis let go. I did not scream. I think I was past screaming. I lay there in the dark, with the wires still glued to me, and I cried without any sound, and after a while the red light in the corner came back on, steady and patient, and somewhere down the hall I heard the booth door open, and Marsh's slippered feet come shuffling, unhurried down the corridor toward my room, to check on his good event. I quit the next morning, or I tried to. I sat up when he came in, and I pulled the wires off my own head before he could touch them, and I told him I was done. I wasn't coming back, keep the money. And Marsh just looked at me with those soft gray eyes, and he didn't argue. He said, all right. And then he said, most people do 2 or 3 more once they've started. The pay goes up. And he reached into his coat and laid down not $200 bills, but 4. 4 of them, fanned out on the nightstand like a hand of cards. $800 for one night. I should have left them. You know I should have left them. But I looked at that money, and I thought about the red envelope and the rent, and the card I was paying with the other card, and I heard myself ask, in a small voice I didn't recognize, why does it pay so much? And Marsh said, because not everyone can come back from it. We pay for the risk. And he smiled, just a little, the first time I'd ever seen him smile, and it didn't reach anywhere near his eyes. I want to tell you about the lounge before I tell you about night 5, because I need you to understand what I saw there, and what it meant, and why I went back anyway, which is the most shameful part of this whole shameful story. There was a room off the main corridor, a kind of lounge with the same oatmeal carpet, and a television bolted high in the corner, playing nothing, just a blue screen. On my way out that morning, $800 in my pocket, I passed it, and I looked in, and there were people in there. 3 of them, subjects like me, in the daytime, between nights. And they were wrong. They sat in plastic chairs facing the blank blue television, and they did not talk, and they did not move, and they did not look at me when I stopped in the doorway. 2 of them were younger, maybe my age, gray-faced and slack, blinking too slowly, and one was older, a man in a cardigan, sitting very straight in the front chair, and his eyes were open and pointed at the blue screen, and there was nobody behind them. I knew it the way you know the full dark from the empty dark. There was no one home in that man. His chest rose and fell. His eyes were wet and open, and he was as empty as a coat on a hook. A nurse I hadn't seen before came and put a paper cup of water in his hand and folded his fingers around it, and his fingers held it, and he didn't drink, and he didn't look at her, and the water just sat there in his hand, trembling slightly with the small tremor of a body that is still running, with nobody at the wheel. That was bed 4. I learned that later, that they numbered us by our rooms, and the empty man in the cardigan was bed 4. And I understood, standing in that doorway, exactly what I was looking at. I was looking at the far end of the thing that had lain down behind me and drunk my breath. I was looking at where the staircase went. The thing took it out of you a little at a time. A breath, a night, a thin essential sip off the top, and it was patient, so patient. And one night there would be nothing left on the top to sip, and it would reach the bottom of you and take that too. and what would be left would sit in a plastic chair in a cardigan, holding a cup of water it would never drink, with its wet eyes open and nobody behind them. And I went back. God help me. I told myself bed 4 was old, was sick, was on some medication he'd lied about, was different from me. I told myself I'd only do 1 or 2 more, just enough to get clear of the red envelopes, and then I'd stop. Early, while there was still plenty of me left. I told myself the thing took so little each night that I had dozens of nights before I'd be anything like the man in the cardigan. I did the math, and the math said I had time, and I believed the math, because the math was on the side of the $800. The reasons were waiting for me at the door, like always, and I bent down and I picked them up and I carried them in, and I lay back down in that bed and let Marsh glue the cold wires to my head. Night 5 it came earlier, not 3:14, 2:45, like it didn't want to wait anymore, like it knew me now and didn't need the full ritual of the night to find me. The paralysis dropped over me and it was already moving before I'd finished going under, already pouring down the wall, and there was something almost, I hate this word, but it's the true one, something almost affectionate in how it came to the bed that night. Familiar, the way you lie down in your own bed without thinking, in the dark, because your body knows the place. It lay down behind me and fit itself to my shape, and it did not have to learn my breathing this time. It knew it. It took up my rhythm at once, and reversed it, and began again to drink. And that night, for the first time, it spoke, except it didn't speak. Not out loud, not in a voice. I told you this isn't one of those stories. It never imitated anyone. It never said my name in my mother's voice. Nothing so kind as that. It put a single thought into the back of my head, the way the feeling of being watched gets put there, under language, straight into the meat. And the thought was not words, but if I put it into words, it was something like, there you are, contentment, recognition, the patient satisfaction of something that has all the time in the world, settling in with a meal it intends to finish slowly. As if I'd been the one who was lost, and it had been waiting, and now I'd come home to it. I broke the paralysis that night with a strength I didn't know I had. Tore up out of it, screaming finally, actually screaming, sound coming out of me at last, and I ripped the wires off, and I fell off the bed and I crawled to the door, and the door was locked. From the outside. It had never been locked before. I beat on it and I screamed, and through the little wired glass window I could see Marsh in the corridor, standing there in the spill of the monitor light, watching me through the glass with his soft gray, patient face, not opening the door, just watching until the data was complete, until whatever they measured had measured enough, and then the lock clicked, and I fell out into the corridor at his feet. He looked down at me, and he said the only thing anyone in that place ever said, but sounded like it came from a person and not from a card. He said quietly, almost kindly, "It already has your scent. The room was never the point. You understand that, don't you? You can stop coming. It won't stop coming." I left. I drove home in the gray dawn, shaking so hard I could barely hold the wheel, and I told myself he was lying. I told myself it was a manipulation, a cult trick, a way to keep a paying subject paying, make him think the only safe place is the place that's hurting him. I told myself the thing lived in that room, in that corner, in that building, and that all I had to do was never go back, and I would be free. I had $1,300 in my pocket. I paid the red envelope. I paid the rent. I told myself it was worth it, and that it was over. And for 3 days it was. For 3 days I slept badly, but I slept, on my friend's couch, with the lamp on, with the television on, with every light in the place burning, and nothing came. And I started to believe I'd been right. I started to believe the building was the cage and I'd gotten out of it. On the 4th night, my friend went away for the weekend, and I went back to my own apartment, my own bed, the first time I'd slept there in a week, and I was so tired, the bone-deep, used-up tired that those nights had left in me, and I thought finally, my own bed, and I turned off the light, and I lay there in the dark of my own bedroom, in my own apartment, 3 miles from that building with no sign, and at 3:14 in the morning my body died and my mind stayed, and I could not move. I lay there locked in place, and I did not want to look, but I made myself look, the way I'd made myself look every time, because not looking is worse. Not looking means it can be anywhere. I looked at the corner of my own ceiling, above my own dresser, the corner I had looked at 1,000 careless times while I got dressed, while I lay there scrolling my phone, the most ordinary corner in the world, and it was too full. The dark in it was too deep. It had followed me out. It did not need the wires on the camera or Marsh in his booth or the bed at the end of the beige corridor. Marsh hadn't been lying. The room was never the point. It had my scent, whatever that means, whatever thin essential thread of me it had drunk enough of to follow, and it had come home with me, and it was up in the corner of my own bedroom, folded up small, full of attention, pointed at me. That was 4 months ago. I did try at the start the ordinary things. I went to a real doctor, a daytime doctor in a bright office, and I told her I had sleep paralysis and a fatigue I couldn't shake. And she ran the ordinary tests, and they came back ordinary. And she gave me a pamphlet about sleep hygiene and told me to cut out caffeine and keep my bedroom cool and dark. Keep it dark. I almost laughed in her face. I went to a real sleep clinic too, a legitimate one, a hospital one with kind nurses and a bright waiting room and no Marsh anywhere in it. And I let them wire me up one more time in a room with an actual window, and I lay there and I thought, maybe here, maybe with real doctors watching. It won't come. It came. It came at 3:14 the way it always comes, and in the morning the kind nurse showed me my own sleep data and frowned at a stretch in the middle of the night where, she said, the readings got a little strange, a flat patch she'd never seen before. Like for a few minutes the machine simply couldn't find me. She said it was probably a loose sensor. I let her think that. What was I going to say? That it had found me even there, in their bright, safe hospital room, where there is no room without a corner. The first time I moved, I did it in daylight, in a hurry, telling myself the old apartment was the problem, that some trace of the clinic had come home in my clothes and soaked into that particular room, that particular corner. I found a studio on the other side of the city. I scrubbed it top to bottom. I bought new sheets, a new bed, as if the bed had ever been the thing. I sat up that first night with every light on and my back against the wall so I was facing the whole room, facing every corner at once, and I told myself, not here. You don't know this place. I made it almost to 4 a.m, and then my eyes were closing on their own, the exhaustion pulling me down like a hand on the back of my neck, and the last thing I saw before my body locked was the corner above the new window, in the new apartment I had told no living soul about, beginning to fill. It knew the address before I did. There is no outrunning a thing that lives in the geometry of rooms. Every ceiling has the same 4 corners. It comes every night now. I've moved twice more since. It doesn't matter. There is a corner in every room. I've slept with the lights on, and it comes anyway, because the lights were never what kept it away. Nothing keeps it away. There is no rule. There is no candle to light, or salt to pour, or word to say. I've looked so hard, and there is nothing. There is only the corner, and the patience, and the slow cold weight lying down behind me, and the breath being drunk out of me, one night at a time. I am 24 now. I look 40. My hair is going gray at the temples in a way that makes the woman at the coffee shop call me sir. I am tired in a way that sleep, what little it lets me keep, does not touch. I can feel the level of myself going down, like the last inch of water in a glass, and I can feel how patient it is, how it will not gulp. I'm telling you this now because I can still tell it. There's going to come a morning. I don't know how many are left. I've stopped being able to do the math. The math abandoned me. There's going to come a morning when I wake up and my body unlocks and I sit up and there's nobody behind my eyes to do it. When I'll just lie there, awake, open, empty, the small tremor running through a body with nobody at the wheel, and someone will fold my fingers around a cup of water I will never drink. So before that morning comes, I wanted to say it out loud, to somebody, to you, not for help. There's no help. I've made my peace with that, the way you make peace with a tide. I'm telling you for one reason only. It learns a scent off the breath of the people it drinks. And I have been breathing these words at you for half an hour now. Close, in the dark, the way you like to listen to these, with your headphones in and your lights off, and your own ceiling up there above your own bed, with its own corner, where the 2 walls meet, the one you've never once looked at, because why would you? Look at it now. Go on. Is the dark in it as empty as you assumed? I'm not going to tell you it'll be fine. I told myself that at every door, and the reasons were always waiting, and look at me now. I'll only tell you the one true thing I learned in that beige room at the end of the corridor. The thing Marsh knew, the thing the money was really paying for. It is so much more patient than you are. It does not need to rush. It has every night for the rest of your life, and it will take them one quiet inch at a time. And you will help it, the way I helped it, by finding a reason every single night to lie back down and turn off the light. Sleep well. If this one stayed with you, if you find yourself tonight not wanting to look at the corner over your bed, there's a new story here every night, and I'm not going anywhere. Not for a while yet.